In today's video, I'll be showcasing examples of rare PlayStation 3 games that are hard to come by in 2023. This list is sorted by 3 tiers: low, medium, and high tier. Low tier is mostly uncommon but found in many eBay listings and resellers, while medium tier is more harder to find, while high tier is more the very rare or the high asking price. It's also worth mentioning that I use pricecharting.com in previous eBay listings to provide an estimate on current average prices for the games. Pricing on used games can change every day, so it might be higher when you see this video or even lower. All prices are in USD and considered complete CIB condition. To kick things off, let's start off with the low tier list. Folklore. Folklore is an action RPG released by Game Republic in June of 2007. The game is set in Ireland of all places, with a tone of Celtic of Irish mythology. Being a PlayStation 3 exclusive, the game released at a time where the PlayStation 3 was struggling to compete in the market. Although not the most rarest game on this list, the average asking price currently for a complete copy is $46. Trinity Souls of Zil-Ol. Trinity Souls of Zil-Ol, if I'm saying that right, is a forgotten action RPG published by Koei Tecmo in November of 2010. Released exclusively on the PlayStation 3, the game is a prequel to the original Zil-O that was released on the PlayStation 1 years prior. Reception for this title at launch was poor. The general consensus given is the game is a solid RPG that doesn't do anything particularly special. Although there's no actual numbers for the total copies printed in North America, it's fair to say at least it was low if anything else, as this is a game you don't really hear commonly brought up. The average asking price for this game goes for currently $52. Azura's Wraith. Azura's Wraith is a cult classic action adventure game released by CyberConnect 2 and published by Capcom. Released in February 2012, the game is a fast-paced action game that relied heavily on quick-time events. When it released in early 2012, the game did not sell well, mostly contributed to the poor marketing at the time of release. Although the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 version of Azura's Wraith isn't necessarily rare, it's still very uncommon, with the average asking price for the PlayStation 3 version alone being about $46. Puppeteer. Puppeteer is a side-scrolling platformer released by Sony Computer Interactive in September of 2012. The game pits the player as an animated puppet with a style that's very reminiscent to Rayman Origins at the time. Known for its unique art style and its approach towards side-scrollers, Puppeteer didn't sell as well as Sony had expected. The game also launched 1 week prior to GTA 5, which stole any spotlight it had. As a result, this game is becoming a lot harder to find, with the average asking price being $51. Magus. Magus is an action RPG released by Black Tower and published by Arxil Games. Released in February 2014, Magus is set in a fantasy world where the player uses spells versus your typical swords and shields. Magus's reception at launch was not well received, as well as launching 4 months after the PlayStation 4 did not help either. Considered a bargain bin type of game back then, it's become more rare over time, with the average asking price for Magus being $78. The Godfather Dawn Edition. The Godfather Dawn Edition is a PlayStation 3 port of the Godfather game released in 2007. Based on the popular movie franchise, the game is an open-world third-person action-adventure game. The PlayStation 3 version included additional missions, new content, exclusive to the PlayStation 3, as well as fixes to the original game. Like the previously mentioned Folklore on this list, Godfather was released when the PlayStation 3 wasn't doing so hot. Although the Xbox 360 version of this game is also uncommon, the PlayStation 3 version is much harder to find, with an average asking price of $63, with some examples even exceeding $100 US. Now let's go to the mid-tier list. 3D.Heroes. 3D.Heroes is an action RPG created by From Software. The game is known for its unique art style blending both 2D and 3D together. Being considered a sleeper hit at the time of release in 2009, the game found itself mostly in bargain bins at your local Walmart. Over time, however, as From Software became more prominent as they are in the industry today, the interest and value of this game has increased. The average asking price for 3D.Heroes is $50 for a complete copy. College Hoops 2K8. College Hoops 2K8 is a college basketball game published by 2K Sports. Although sports games tend to drop value about a year after release, College Hoops 2K8 was the last entry in the franchise. A lot of college sports games tend to hold value as many of them have been discontinued. It also helps that it's widely considered one of the best games in the series. The average asking price for this game is $88 for a complete copy. Spatterhouse. Spatterhouse is an action-adventure game released by Namco. Based on the 80s to 90s franchise, it was supposed to be a reimagining of the original game on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, released in 2010. The reception for this title was poor and did not sell as well as Namco had hoped. Since the franchise has remained dormant since this game, the value of this title has increased over time. Both the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 version of this game today is considered rare. However, the PlayStation 3 version has a higher asking price, being $60, with various sold examples while exceeding over $100 on eBay. The Legend of Spyro: Dawn of the Dragon. The Legend of Spyro: Dawn of the Dragon was a third-person action-adventure game released in 2008. Set in the Spyro universe, the game was known for being one of the only Spyro games released on the 7th gen of consoles. Given this status, it is becoming more and more rare to find out in the wild. With a mixed reception at launch, Spyro did not sell well as Activision had hoped, with the lesser being on the PlayStation 3. The average asking price for Legend of Spyro: Dawn of a Dragon is $58. Best of PlayStation Network Volume 1. Best of PlayStation Network Volume 1 is a collection of 4 PSN games released on a single Blu-ray. These titles include Fat Princess, Tokyo Jungle, Soundscapes, and Vikings Attack. One of the main reasons this collection is rare today is because few of the titles on this collection were delisted a few years back on the PlayStation Network. This meaning you no longer can purchase or download these games, with the only way of playing them being on this disc. As a result, this under-the-radar collection disc has skyrocketed in value over the years. I couldn't find its asking price on price charting, however, most copies float between $80 to $100 USD. FIFA 19. FIFA 19 is a football sports game released by EA Sports in 2018. Released as the very last FIFA game on the PlayStation 3, it was touted as the quote-unquote Legacy Edition, which is basically the same game as the year prior, with mostly just a roster update and a few changes here and there. Since many gamers have moved on to the PlayStation 3 at that point, the game was printed in limited copies for the PlayStation 3. Today, this game fetches an average asking price of $60 USD, with its sealed copy surpassing $100 USD. Armored Core 5 Verdict Day. Armored Core 5 Verdict Day is a third-person action-adventure mech game created by From Software and published by Namco. Released in September 2013, Verdict Day is considered one of the weaker entries in the franchise, and for the longest point was the last Armored Core game that we had for over a decade. Its PlayStation 3 version is quite rare to come by today, so expect to pay an average of $118 for a complete copy. Saw 2. Saw 2 is a survival action horror game released by Zombie Studios and published by Konami in 2011. Being a sequel to the 2009 Saw game, the game puts a player through literal hell, navigating Jigsaw's puzzles and fighting their way to freedom. The game suffered from a mixed reception at launch and did not sell well as a result. At the time of the release, its marketing was also limited, which could have been a factor as well. Anyways, this game is rare on the PlayStation 3, with an average asking price of $62, with various examples exceeding that amount on eBay. This is a game you usually find at a lot of pawn shops behind a glass counter, and there's usually good reasons behind that. Spiderman Games published by Activision. In the 7th gen era of gaming, prior to Sony's acquisition to the rights of Spider-Man, Activision was the rights holder to the superhero at the time. In total, Activision published a total of 6 Spider-Man games, with the values ranging from low to high. Since you no longer can download any Activision Spider-Man games on PSN, the value has continued to rise for physical copies of these games. Starting from the lowest, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has an average asking price of $20, whereas The Amazing Spider-Man 1 has an average asking price of $25. Spider-Man 3, a movie tie-in to the 2007 Spider-Man 3 movie, has an average asking price of $25 as well, whereas Spider-Man Edge of Time has an average asking price of $83. Spider-Man Shadow Dimensions has an average asking price of $87, with the most expensive Spider-Man game on this list being Spider-Man Web of Shadows with an average asking price of $103 US. Now let's get into the high rollers of this list. Painkiller: Hell and Damnation. Painkiller: Hell and Damnation is a first-person arena shooter originally released on the PC by Farm 51 in 2010. The game received a console port both on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. In Europe, both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 received physical releases. Meanwhile, in North America, the Xbox 360 version was released digitally only, with the PlayStation 3 version having a very limited physical launch. Given the limited amount of copies printed in North America and little to no marketing of this game when it it launched, it was rare to find a GameStop to even have this game even when it released. As a result, this game has skyrocketed in value, with an average asking price of $250 and graded condition copies going for well over $400. Afrika. Afrika is a photography simulator game that was similar to games like Pokemon Snap, first shown at Sony's E3 2006 conference. Released in 2008, the game puts a player in exploring parts of Africa while they take photos of various animals and wildlife around them. Given its limited notoriety, unique premise, and launching in 2008 when the PlayStation 3 still wasn't up and coming, as a result, it did not ship as many units. It has an average asking price for a North American copy sitting at $152. This game is becoming very hard to find nowadays, so make sure you keep your eye out for this one out in the wild. Aquanaut's Holiday Hidden Memories. Aquatic Holiday Hidden Memories is an aquatic exploration game published by Sony Interactive. The game takes control of a journalist in search of a missing oceanographer. Using a submarine, you will explore the sea to find clues on their whereabouts. Released in 2008, the game originally only was released in Asia, with the Japanese version to be the most common one, whereas the Hong Kong version and the Korean version being the most desirable. The Hong Kong version included both English subtitles as well as Chinese, while the Korean version included English subtitles and of course Korean. The average asking price for this game is $420 just for a complete copy. The Last Guy. The Last Guy was a downloadable title released in the PSN in the summer of 2008. It is a top-down style game where the player plays as the last guy who is escaping monsters and zombies. Along the way, the player can lead stranded civilians to help them throughout their journey. Known for utilizing Google Earth to render world cities, the game had a limited release in Japan as well as Hong Kong, the Hong Kong version being the rarest. The Hong Kong version included both English and Chinese translations, which makes this version the most desirable one. The current asking price is $297, with a graded example going upwards to $467. NBA Elite 11. Considered the holy grail of any PlayStation 3 game collector, NBA Elite 11 is a sports game cancelled by EA in 2010. Originally to be released that following fall year, the game was printed and shipped to stores. However, in a rare occurrence, EA decided to pull the plug on the game. You see, EA had a demo prior to the release of the game that was launched, and the overall poor reception and bugs caused them to basically pull the game completely from the market. EA had asked all retailers who received copies of this game to recall any of them back to Electronic Arts for their disposal. However, not all copies of the game were recalled, with a few that were actually sold under the table. Back in 2010, when the game was originally pulled, one of the copies was sold at auction for $252. Back then, that was considered a lot of money for a game, let alone a sports game. A few years later, a lot of 5 copies of NBA Elite, which consists of 3 Xbox 360 SKUs and 2 PlayStation 3 SKUs, popped up online and sold for a staggering $30,000 US. With a rumored under 100 copies in existence, be prepared to shell out well over $8,000 for a copy of NBA Elite 11 on the PlayStation 3. Fun fact, NBA Elite 11 on the Xbox 360 still is considered lost media, as no one has actually uploaded an ISO of that disc. And that was the most rare PlayStation 3 games in 2023. I hope you enjoyed it. Like always, if you enjoyed this video or my style, please consider a like or even a subscription. I just want to say thank you for all the love and support I've been getting for the past few months. I actually just completed the YouTube partnership program, and I'm currently waiting on my application to be reviewed. So it's a big milestone for myself, and I couldn't have done it without all your help. So thank you so much, guys. Until next time, guys, peace.